Let me tell you a story that's all too common. Maria was 14, living in a small, isolated town in Colombia, surrounded by gigantic mountains and deep ravines, and began working as a nanny for a well-to-do family at a neighboring town. Maria walked 3 miles in the sweltering heat through a vast tropical jungle across a slow-moving river to get to work by 6 a.m. every day. Although Maria dreamed of going to school, her village was considered one of the poorest and most remote in the country, and had the sad privilege of hosting a large population of homeless people begging on the street. After about a year, the family that employed Maria invited her to travel with them to the United States to care for their 4 children. And they promised to help Maria pursue her dream of getting an education. So Maria and her family happily agreed. Maria got a 2-year domestic worker visa, and a few weeks later, she boarded a plane to Boston, carrying 1 small carry-on suitcase and a Spanish to English dictionary. She didn't know it then, but Maria would become a survivor of labor and sex trafficking. Maria was told that she owed $12,000 for the visa and for the transportation to the United States. And only then did Maria find out she would be paid just $25 a week. So Maria would have to work for the family for 10 years to pay off her debt. Her passport was taken away from her, and she worked 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, with no days off. Sometimes the parents had guests visit, and Maria had to cook and clean for them too, and none of the guests ever said a word to her. She was a fixture in the house, a robot, there to do things for them. Maria felt invisible, dispensable, and alone. And soon, her traffickers started expecting Maria to be available sexually to their guests as well. This went on for 2 years. And while we might like to think that slavery is a thing of the past, in the 21st century, the opposite is true. There are over 28.7 million women and girls across the world caught up in the modern-day slave trade. Today, right now. And 1/3 of the world's poorest girls, aged 10 to 18, have never even been to school. Today, right now, there are 130 million girls who are completely missing out on school. And about 650 million girls and women alive today were married as a child, under the age of 15. Our world of tomorrow depends on whether the leaders of today and all who stand with them recognize the urgency and the peril of inaction. Leaders and decision makers, whether in the South Sudan or the South Side of Chicago, need to demand physical and psychological safety and equal access to basic human rights, nutrition, the ability to control their bodies, to choose a mate, and to access healthcare, education, jobs, and housing for all girls and all women everywhere. It's up to all of us who stand on the shoulders of so many to push and hold wide open the doors of opportunity, ensuring that every girl and every woman has the possibility of leading life to her full potential. We are at a critical juncture in human history, which could lead to widely contrasting futures. But I am convinced that the future is not set in stone, but it's flexible, bendable, adaptable, and dependent on our actions right here, right now. In one future, by recognizing and protecting the physical and psychological safety of girls and women around the world and giving them access to basic human rights, half of the world's population, millions of people, could be lifted out of poverty. This new wealth could empower millions of families adding significantly to local and national economies. In fact, the global economy could nearly double by the year 2030 to 132 trillion in today's currency. Innovations could dramatically improve. New discoveries and inventions could continue to improve and impact human lives, and we all benefit. In the alternative future, we don't address human tragedies that women face all around the world, grappling with basic human rights, physical and psychological safety, and education. In this future, we don't harness the problem-solving capacity of half of the world's population, so our current trends gain momentum, leading us to a future where millions of people now die a year from complications with air pollution. More than half of the world's population now live in water-stressed areas. Sea levels rise, droughts render areas of the planet unsafe or even uninhabitable. We all lose. The World Economic Forum estimates that at our current rate of progress, it will take more than 267 years to close the economic gender gap. But through what I call the ladder of economics, we can close that economic gender gap in half the time. The first rung of the ladder is simple physical safety, access to basic human rights like clean water, freedom from abuse, like physical violence, child marriage, and slave labor. The second rung of the ladder is psychological safety, which includes things like equal access to education, no longer being considered property. And the third rung of the ladder involves equal access to opportunity in society, free from unintentional or intentional bias, whether that's equal access to jobs or housing. And the final rung of the ladder is all about giving women a voice, whether that's in the boardroom or in political office, and allowing them to fully express their talents, their gifts, and their experiences. And when we lift women up the ladder, we can close the economic gender gap and begin to tackle some of the most daunting challenges facing our planet today. My focus today is to encourage each of you as leaders, as influencers, and as decision makers to lift all women up each rung of the economic ladder so that a more egalitarian and equitable future has a better chance of unfolding. We can all benefit from the impact that these millions of women can bring to their families, their communities, and the world. Through my career, I have learned the transformative power of bringing inspiring leaders together to create opportunity, to discover possibility, and to solve problems. I now have the privilege of supporting and guiding ambitious, creative women to move in the direction of their purpose and their mission and their dreams, with powerful connections and critical support so that they can show up, speak up, and step up in their careers and their personal lives. My purpose and my life's work now as the CEO of LeadHERship Global centers around accelerating the success of all women all over the world. As women represent over half of the global population, I believe that women should be at the forefront of the economic, political, and cultural movement, not just out of a sense of fairness, but to ensure that the very best minds, men's and women's alike, are brought together to address the challenges that our society faces today. Let's consider the possibilities. Imagine if we could harness the gifts, the talents, the passions, and the purpose of all women around the world. If we could pull all women up each rung of the economic ladder and all women were given the opportunity to impact the world, we could close the economic gender gap in half the time and accelerate our ability to tackle some of the most daunting issues facing our planet today. In fact, there are many women to celebrate in the world right now who are paving the way for diseases to be detected and treated early, who are building innovative predictive analytics to help feed the world, and developing innovative clean water technologies, and more. But others are facing the hardest challenges of all: securing a safe place to spend the night, finding food, water, and shelter for their children, or getting access to basic hygiene, medical care. Research shows that women have felt the greatest impact from the global pandemic. Many still face even tougher times ahead. Meet Clarissa. She's 7 years old and lives in a small rural town with dusty streets and brightly painted concrete homes in southeastern Brazil. Her goal is simply to finish school and then maybe become a teacher. But it is difficult. In her district, there are not enough schools for the number of children, so the school day is divided into 3 sessions. Clarissa goes to the early session beginning at 6:00 a.m. Then from noon to bedtime plus weekends, Clarissa works for a neighbor, caring for their 5 children. Clarissa feels invisible and alone, many days working 15 hours straight, just like her mother. Every morning, her mother wakes her at 4:30 a.m. and tells Clarissa, "Get up now. I want you to go to school for me," because she herself never had the chance. She came from a family of 10 children and became a domestic worker by the age of 7, caring for another family's 5 children. She stayed with them until her family sold her into marriage. Just like her mother, Clarissa never finishes school, and slowly her dreams of living a different kind of life begin to slip away. We tend to think that this situation is rare, especially in developed countries, but even today, that's the story of 130 million girls who have never been to school. We are facing a crippling learning crisis for impoverished families all over the world because poverty and discrimination are denying an education to millions of children. In many places around the world today, women are still considered property. Violence against women is still a major public health concern, and child marriage still affects millions of girls around the world. Women and girls still remain at the lowest rungs of the ladder of economics. The sooner we understand that by providing girls and women basic human rights, nutrition, the ability to control their bodies, the ability to choose a mate, and giving them access to healthcare, education, jobs, housing, we're advancing not only women, but all people. To help solve some of the biggest issues we face on our planet, women have got to be lifted up each rung of the ladder of economics. The choices we make next can impact our world more than we can even imagine. But we need all hands on deck, including each of you. If you're ready to usher in a brighter world of tomorrow, here are a few simple actions that you can take right here, right now. Number 1, vote at the ballot. Women remain woefully underrepresented in the highest political positions. As of today, women hold only 25% of seats in national governments, and they account for less than 7% of the world's leaders. So what's the easiest, most direct way that you can make a difference? Vote. And consider voting for women. Stay informed on upcoming elections, spread the word about strong women candidates, and register to vote if you haven't yet. Check in with friends and family members to make sure that they're registered too. You can also make an impact by donating your time and your money. Help get the word out with minimal effort by simply making phone calls or sending texts in support of your preferred candidate. If you're ready for a bigger commitment, join a political campaign full-time and encourage women you know to run for office or to launch your own campaign. And vote with your wallet. Whether it's for your next bottle of shampoo or a new pair of jeans, The way you shop can have real impact on supporting women-owned, women-operated businesses and gender-balanced businesses. And in turn, it can have great impact on the lives of women and girls all around the world. Actively support companies with a solid record on gender equality. In fact, the organization Equileap compiles an annual list of the world's 100 most gender equitable companies based on the women's empowerment principles established by the United Nations. Join the ranks by signing on to the Women's Empowerment Principles today. Buy your products based on your values, choosing products and services from gender equitable companies. Women can be part of solving the world's most urgent and complex crises. They can use their unique insights, their passion, their perseverance to bring new ideas to life, disrupting business models, breaking industry norms, and coaching the next generation of innovators. Their impact simply cannot be overstated. But women have got to be lifted up each rung of the ladder to be part of solving the biggest issues that we face on our planet. I join the voices of women leaders from around the world, demanding that governments, the private sector, and society as a whole reinvigorate and reinvest the ladder of economics that can achieve worldwide gender equality. Join us.